Our new boy is in from Kenya. Anderson goes to Blackpool. And Queen's Park Rangers head to the Valley for a Friday night under the lights. Hello, everybody. Welcome into the 46th episode of the From the Firefly podcast. My name is Callum. I will be your host as always. It is a little bit weird to be doing this on a Thursday at 7. It feels slightly sacrilegious. It's Charlton live time. But hopefully I can fulfill a little bit of the Charlton life-sized holes in everybody's hearts on this Thursday evening. Hope you're all keeping well. I'm still on a bit of a high from Saturday. That was a great day. It's good that the window's shut. Don't have to stress about that anymore. The team we have is the team we have, unless we're looking in the free agent market and considering what we've taken from the free agent market over the last season or so. I make the assumption we're probably going to be avoiding doing that unless we really have to. But QPR head down to the Valley on tomorrow night. It's going to really mess my weekend. That QPR are down on Friday night for a game that feels really, really important for us. It feels of the three coming up, maybe not the most winnable, but if you catch QPR on a bad night, they're definitely beatable. I think if you catch Stoke on a bad night, they're beatable as well. And then you play Portsmouth, who obviously are around us. So it's an important 3 games, I think. I think if you get something basically from all 3 of them, if you come out with 5 or 6 at the end of the 3 games, I think the relegation time's going to be a little bit away from us. We can build that gap, really try to create some necessary breathing space. And then we go to West Brom, who are obviously in a complete mess at the moment as well. So you've got to look at these next 4 as games where you absolutely can pick up points in all of them. Will we? I don't know. It's the Championship. It's difficult. You can also run into Stoke on a good day and they'll beat you 3-0 again. So I don't know almost what I'm expecting. I'm expecting us to sort of set up very sort of very much trying to, as we did sort of early in the season, trying to grab something. I think we're going to look a lot more defensive secure, and we always do when we have Murray Bell back there. I think that QPR have injuries, which is a little bit of a guilt-edged sword. That obviously Burrell being out, Chair being out, by the sounds of things, normally would be a good thing. But Paul Smith, whenever he plays against us, decides to turn into Lionel Messi. So it's a bit of it's a real challenge to sort of predict the game on Friday. I think if we can get something, get something early, right? Get an early goal, kind of set the crowd down a little bit. I think that there's definitely something in there in that game. It was a frustrating one at Loftus Road, actually, in the reverse, because I don't actually think for a lot of the game we were that bad. We're definitely in it. I think Miles hits the crossbar at 1-1, and I think that probably could change it. The Smith shot really probably should be saved by the goalkeeper, right? So you're looking at, it's a couple of moments, right? Was the foul on Tyrese a foul? Yeah, they should have had a red card before that moment. So it's not quite a 3-1 game in terms of what it looked like. But what we didn't do is we didn't take advantage of the fact that their crowd was down from that 7-1 defeat the weekend before, and it was quite frustrating, especially coming off the back of the game we played really well in against Leicester. We'll have a bit of a chat about the transfer window later on in the show. I've always wanted to say that. I'll chat about the transfer window in a little bit. It'd be interesting to hear some opinions on that. It's good to see a couple of people in the comments. I'll call you out now before I go any further. Got Robert, Good evening. Good evening to you, mate. I'm disappointed that the EFL only deducted Leicester, deducted 6 points for Leicester. I thought it should have been at least 9. We'll come to that. Still wasn't sure with Nathan Jones press whether Lebo will feature tomorrow night. I think he might. I think he was saying he's out on the grass. That sounds like he probably will play. It looked like an awkward fall. Clubs often put players in slings just as precautionary. Sometimes they put them in boots as well or on crutches, and people get really sort of. He was on crutches, and the next week he's playing. Well, that's just precautionary, so it doesn't make it any worse. Basically, on the bus home. Hi, Tommy. I'm doing well. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're doing all okay on this Thursday evening. QPR should be a good test after last weekend. 6 points would be good, I think. I think probably got 6-6 from the 3 games. I think that's achievable. Right? If you can beat QPR, even if you lose to Stoke, right? We're a good side, Stoke, right? You beat QPR, you beat Portsmouth, and all of a sudden you're really looking at mid-table at that point. Especially since the bottom 5 are. I know Leicester now are kind of back down in there, but God, that bottom 5's crap. We're not great, but that bottom 5 is really crap. Hi, Stuart. How you doing? So always love to see you. Did our boy eat today from Mark? Oh God, I have to admit I've been thoroughly enjoying the Kenyan content, and some of the proverbs people have been making up have been honestly laugh out loud, funny. So fair play to our newfound fan club in Nairobi or whatever it's going to be for Friday night. Have like a fan park of people watching to see if Sajendja comes on. Leicester had more than 6 points. Yeah, they probably should have done. And then hello to Sam. And then I think everyone, we need revenge on them. QPR's local derby. It sort of is and it sort of isn't. I don't think I sit here and think of it as a derby. It's a weird one. Like, what do I think of QPR? I mean, I always joke. I think the name was absolutely dreadful. The Super Hoops. Sounds like a box of Cheerios. Like a special limited edition Cheerio box. But I don't know. I don't see it as a derby. Yeah. I mean, sure, it's grim on my point, right? Beat QPR and just make sure we beat Pompey, we'll be fine. I think so. I think if you can get 5, even if you beat QPR, draw with Stoke and draw with Pompey, right, and you end up getting the 5. I think with the way the bottom 4 are tracking, that may be good enough to sort of keep the distance and maybe even expand it a little bit. I think Sheffield United now starting to really pull away after beating Oxford. Oxford could be down by the end of the month. Has anyone seen their fixtures? They're absolutely horrific. But you could see a world in which Oxford are down based by the time we play them in March. They'll cut adrift at the very least. It's a bit of they've been on a bit of a run, but I think Sheffield United probably ended that manager bounce. London derby. It is a derby. It is a local derby, I guess. There's a couple of miles, isn't it, down the road? I don't see them as a rival, right? Palace, Millwall, yeah. But I mean, to be fair, I don't see West Ham as a rival, really. And they're just across the river. And, by across the river, I mean across the river from the valley. They're 5 minutes from me. But yeah, it's one of those. I think the thing with QPR is obviously they've got Coney up front. You have to pay attention to him. They've got, we'll see with their injuries who's playing. They've got Harvey Vale, who's come back into the side and looks pretty good. I've always liked Stefan as a manager, even when he was in the French league with Reims. So I think they're a good side. The goalkeeper's still a bit of I know he's been better lately, but he's still someone I think you can get something on. Yeah, and I think Mark actually gets this just about right. Anything more than 5 points is a great yield from these games. Pompey hitting something like form, yeah. And Stoke and QPR are wholly unpredictable. They really are. Stoke and QPR are up and down, up and down, up and down. Which, to be totally fair, I think is probably what the prediction sort of should have shown. Is that's kind of where those two clubs are. I think they're probably both 3 or 4 players away from competing. I know for Stoke, losing Johansson's a really is a killer. Right, they've lost the best keeper in the division to injury. So we'll see. We'll see what sort of happens with Stoke in terms of whether they can get themselves back into the pass. But it's a really weird one. If we beat QPR, I think we go 5 points behind them. Right, which shows what the championship is like. It's absolutely wild. Leicester do have a tough February to it as well, and they've just lost to Oxford and Charlton back to back at home, right? In back to back match weeks. That's a killer. And they have a manager. I wouldn't be feeling particularly comfortable if I was a Leicester fan. I think West Brom's fixtures are a bit tricky as well. But they would be the one club that wouldn't mind it going down to the final day because they play Sheffield Wednesday. But I mean, it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but really everybody, who's got to play Wednesday, right? Because that's 3 points. And I don't mean that to be sort of dismissive. Knowing our luck, we will play Wednesday the day that their own new owner is announced, and they'll have a full Hillsborough, and it's going to be awful. But I don't know. I look at it and I go, there's 3 points off Wednesday. Whatever happens, I think that they are such a complete disaster. But it means that everybody else is getting 3 extra points, so it takes the total a bit funky. I was chatting to a friend actually via text earlier. He was saying, get that to 52. That might be about right. Maybe you need a couple of extra points, but you look at it, you go, look, it's what, 5 wins from 17, or 4 wins and 3 draws from 17. It's hardly sort of. It's hard like me to win 10 games or something to get ourselves sort of safe. We still haven't touched the relegation zone. I know that makes people think of 1920, but we haven't touched the relegation zone. We've never been any closer, I think, than 3. Our goal difference still isn't. It's bad, but it's not atrocious, right? A couple of one big win, and all of a sudden, if you beat one of these sides 3-0, all of a sudden you're back to there. Yeah, so it's 12 plus the Wednesday voucher, right? And then you'll have Oxford away in a time when I think Oxford really could be looking at going down at that point if you look at their fixtures as well, Mark. So I think the points are there. We've got a lot of home games, right? And that's why these 3 games I think are really important. If you can pull yourself something like, if you can get yourself to sort of 2 wins and a draw. If you get 7 out of these 3, I think all of a sudden those relegation fears really start to dissipate. I really like Nathan Jones' press conference actually today. I thought it was really measured. I think that you can kind of see where they want to get to. That the aim here is it's just to stay up. It's just to stay up. However you stay up, hook or by crook. Right? I don't care if the ball comes off of I don't know, Kone's backside into his own net on Friday night. If I win it 1-0, I'm not going to come on here and moan on Sunday, right? Put it that way. So it's just win games, pick up points, right? If you're 1-0 down, pick up a point, right? Can you scratch a point at a difficult place, right? And if I think about the season that Nathan Jones kept us up when we were really struggling in League One, and someone posted the table for that, and I completely forgot how bad it was. I think it was Northampton who were behind us. They had like 3 games in hand or something, and were a point behind us and didn't win any of them. And ended up finishing. They ended up finishing a spot below us. But yeah, I mean, if you look at that, you needed one sort of signature win, and that win was at Derby, right, when no one expected it. I think you're probably in a situation here if you're going to need a result somewhere where you don't expect it, and then you should be able to pick up the requisite points from that point at home. The home games that we have coming up, unfortunately, we've sort of done the 2 bankers, which are Blackburn's god-awful away form and Sheffield Wednesday, obviously, at home. And Oxford, we've beaten them at home already, but you've got Pompey, you have Norwich. Norwich aren't bad, but you know what I mean. West Brom, we've already beaten at home. So we're looking really, we need to beat, we lost to Leicester at home. We've got to beat someone around us, I think. So look at Norwich, look at Portsmouth. We've already beaten Sheffield United at home. So yeah, you're really looking at Norwich or Pompey really as a game that you go, if you can win one of those, you should be. Yeah, 49 was enough last year, Stuart. The problem with that is that obviously Sheffield Wednesday exists, and Sheffield Wednesday are a mess off the pitch. So Sheffield Wednesday are a mess off the pitch, but they're actually a bigger disaster on it as well. So as a result, it sort of boosted it from everyone. I think that you'd really be looking at trying to get to 50. I think if you're at 50, 51, I think you're going to be okay. Yeah, Norwich, Bristol City, they're a team that are on a bit of a slide though, Mark, and they've just sold most of their best players. So I think, again, we should have beaten them at Ashton Gate, for goodness sakes, as well. So that's, Vitek doesn't make one of the best saves that no one talks about. With his fingertip on Tyrese Campbell, we're taking 3 points there, and they didn't create anything. But they're a side, again, that are up and down. I think they joined Stoke, QPR. We have a lot of those sort of teams coming. You hope you can probably catch 2 or 3 of them on the bad days, and even if you catch 2 or 3 of them on the good days, it doesn't really matter. Ipswich are really interesting. They'll be a lot better than they are. Preston's away form at times can be iffy, and they've been on a bit of a slide. Besides a bit of a slide, we've got Hull. Hull is going to be tough, but again, does anyone expect Hull to be in that top 3 by the time we get there? I'm not sure. I fully expect Norwich to fly up as well. But they are around us, and we will play them when they're. I don't know if we'll play them when we're around us. To be 100% fair, I'm trying to think of a team that I can imagine dropping. There's always one that ends up in this really horrific run, where they just can't pick up points. I wonder if Bristol City are that side. Again, sold all their best players except for Scott Twine, and Josh Knight, and I just look at them and I go, is that? I like Struber as a manager, but I look at that and I go, is that a team that could be dropping? Someone will drop. It happens every single season. The team in the second half of the season just drops like a stone. The question is it already Leicester? I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, Bristol City just saw the. Yeah, that's another really good shout. Watford, who we play away. And Vicar Road has hardly been a fortress at times for Watford this season. That's one. We end the season at Swansea, who will almost certainly be on the beach at that point. I can't see him motoring towards the playoffs. I can't see him dropping like a stone. Although they'll want to relegate Nathan Jones, wouldn't they? I really hope we don't go to a last day. I don't think that my nerves would deal with that. I don't think we're going to, by the way. If you ask me, I think we'll probably be safe. Probably 3 or 4, probably 3 weekends to go, I would have thought. If we get these home games right. I mean, we say that too about good teams coming to when we're at home. And I know we lost to Borough at home, but actually we normally take points off of good sides at home, so the crowd helps. You'd imagine some of these will be flexed into weird times. So it's going to be such an interesting, I think, end to the season, and I'm very happy I've got a couple of sunny holidays for some of the gaps to sort of help my nerves get through it. But yeah, I mean, if I look at QPR, they've sold out the away end. Weirdly, this game is tracking to be one of our most attended games of the season. I'm not entirely sure why that would be on a Friday night. But that looks like where we're tracking for some god unknown reason. I know they sold out the away end. It's 3 miles away. I'm not going to give them credit for that. But it's an interesting one. Also, QPR's record at the Valley is pretty awful. So that's another thing. History, Portsmouth's records at the Valley is dreadful. Norwich is as good, to be fair, but there's quite a few that sort of come down and their records aren't great. Yeah, they didn't tie down Vinna and Mehmeti, which is what I mean by they've sold their best players. That's right, they didn't get them contract extensions. It's good to see Paul in here, as always, my man Paul. Chatting about Leicester. We'll come to Leicester in a second. Yeah, then there's always a team that bombs. I mean, there's usually a team, Stuart, and you were saying West Brom and Leicester. There's usually a team that bombs after this point as well. There's one that just completely disintegrates. And I wonder, again, I look at that Bristol City team after losing the derby and I go, I wonder. Because that was a complete disaster at home against a team that, I know beat us at home. But they beat us at home in a game that was competitive. I look at that Bristol City thing, it just wasn't competitive at all. And I wonder if it's hard to go to a group of players that serve on the verge of the playoffs and go, we have no sort of ambition to go further up. Bristol City are a really good example. We'll come to Micah later, but Bristol City are a really good example of what happens when you sell youth prospects at the right sort of time and how you can sort of make your finances work if you're not going to pump, millions and millions in at the start. Let's chat transfer windows just because I don't think there's much else I can say about QPR, and they're one of those sort of mid-table. They could end up in the playoffs if they have a good run. I think almost anybody from about 15th up could. But I look at QPR and I go, I think if you catch them on the right day, there's 3 points in that for us, and I think that probably the next 4 home games you're probably looking at and going, that's probably the case. We've got some tough away games. Southampton's tricky. I know they battered us, but St. Mary's is a bit toxic at times, and there may be a possibility to grind out a point there. So you kind of look at some of these guys. You look at this February and you go, if you can pick up some points in February before you have March, which is tricky, and April is very, very tricky, except for the voucher at Sheffield Wednesday. You could be looking at getting yourself towards safety by the time you kind of reach April time, and that would be great for both my health and for for all of our mental health, really, and for the club in terms of planning for the summer. Because the longer you wait, the less time you sort of have to plan. So before we talk about the window as a whole, let's talk about our brand new signing. Sir J. Collins has signed from Valdivina, FK Valdivina. of the Serbian Super League. No, I have not watched a game of Serbian Super League action. However, I was in the crowd when Red Star Belgrade played PSG away, and they were all banned. When a bunch of Red Star fans bought tickets in the home end and then started shooting flares at the French police. And I was trying to get away from that with my mate with a broken ankle, so that was fantastic. But Serbian football is not known for being soft, so Sir J. Collins making the comment that officials are too code happy in Serbia is a little bit concerning. Especially Nathan Jones saying he's already left his foot on a couple of players in training, which somehow feels completely true to character. And somehow I'm like, this is exactly what I think he's going to be. Which is either going to be Naby Sarr, is going to be Ryan in this, and I don't think there's sort of anything in between, or he's going to end up being like a Richard Rufus without investing for other people sort of player, right? Just a really fantastic centre back or a complete and utter mess. But it sounds like he's, from training at least, it sounds like they're happy, right? Nathan's kind of very, very happy talking about him. He went quite in depth on what he can and can't do, and it sounds like there's a real player in there. We'll see how quickly we get to see that. I don't think it's going to be a heck of a lot over the next couple of months. But I think by the time you kind of hit that April period, if you are safe, you can start to bring him into those games and see what you have. It's a risk. It's a lot of money, quite relatively. It's a flyer. It's a Phil Chappell signing, but it's also a player that if he has the archetype that you're looking for, I will say you're recruiting for a system. We need another athletic centre back. And I think Mark's right. I think he could be a bit of a hybrid centre back, central defensive midfielders type player who can play a bit higher, almost play that Cody role. Now I think going into the game and the transfer window, we did not get the centre mid, and that's the thing that's probably the most that. And I would have liked another left-sided defensive player. I think Fred had been much better there than Tyrese Campbell was. I think he's definitely played that position. He played there at Stockport. He played there. He's played quite a lot for Stockport. Maybe not this season, but last season he played there quite a lot and was absolutely fine. He reminds me of Thierry Small as a bit of an archetype. I don't think he's quite the same player, but I think that he's got the same sort of. He's a big enough lad. He's quick enough. He actually had a very nice cross against Leicester, but his crossing's a bit hit and miss. Whereas quite fair enough, Chambers looked quite a bit like Josh Edwards. I don't know if anybody thought on Saturday with some really lovely deliveries, pretty defensively solid. And so I think that those are both sort of signings I can get behind, at least just to cover to enable you to sort of change, and that's what Nathan Jones did in the second half of that Leicester game. Was he brought two outside players on and made it so they couldn't go through Mad Davidi, Mongo, or Fatuwu. So I think it just gives him some options. I think he looked a lot more comfortable in the Leicester game, being able to call upon those options. I think it's very interesting. Every one of those signings was either in the starting 11 or on the bench, which tells you that these are players that are very much here now, and just need to get through the next couple of months. So I think the Cody one is the one that is the most interesting. Right? Do I expect him to look like Sergio Busquets like he did on Saturday every week? No. But when you think about it, and I know I've mentioned before that he did play midfielder in the early parts of his career. But when you think about him, it makes all the sense in the world for him to play that sort of position, because you've got the when you're on the ball and you push the two wing backs forward, you've got the three at the back, but both Bell and Ramsey can play at fullback. So you just drop Cody back in and you've got a four. So you can push the rest up, right? You can use Doc to kind of cover that space. So there's not a big gap because Doc can get up and down. It's why it does surprise me we've let Croy go a little bit, because I think that role would actually probably suit Croy, where you just kind of go up and down in that gap. But it allows you to push Kerry up, push Dykes up, push Leeburn up, push Chambers up, push push Clark up, right? They can all go because you've got Clark and Chambers who both have recovery pace enough. But you've got behind them, you've got Bell and Ramsey, two players who can't go forward at all, but defensively are very, very good. So of course the Connor Cody makes sense, because actually when they would be transitioning, Connor Cody's already playing centre back. He's not playing in midfield when we have the ball. He's only playing on it. You can't counter against the team that's sat when they have the ball. And that's why CDMs don't need to be the fastest player in the world. Connor Coventry's not the fastest player in the world, right? Look at Rodri's not the fastest player in the world. No, I'm being a bit ridiculous with that sort of comparison. But you know what I mean? Rodri's not the fastest guy in the world. Busquets wasn't the fastest. Cruz wasn't the fastest. Casemiro was never the fastest, right? But the reason why the best in that sort of role, Carrick, right? What made them so good in that role was actually their ability to just kind of screen. But you quite often see them almost drop back and add an extra layer of defense when the opponent was on the transition. So it means that you can kind of both be defensive, but also do the Nathan Jones, I want to get on the front foot sort of thing. It also, because you're sort of sitting that 4 back, because Bell and Ramsey aren't going to go forward, it allows you to have a goalkeeper that's not going to come for as much stuff because the defensive line is so deep. So the question really is, do we have a connector that can play that 8 role, which Doherty did okay on? Well, actually, I'm going to be nice. He did well on Saturday. Can he do that every week against every team? I would be worried against a Hayden Hackney at Middlesbrough. I'd probably be worried against Ipswich. But I would be worried against them anyway. So you can probably play the 2 DMs, right? You can almost play a 4-2-3-1 in certain aspects, and whether it's on the ball or off the ball. Because you can move Chambers and Clark. You can play them almost as midfielders, right? In those sorts of games when you need a little bit more of that protection. But the one thing Cody has is incredible amounts of technical ability, right? The guy was picking the ball up, and because he's played in the 3 for so many years now, the first thing he does, if anyone notices, look up, look wide. Takes the ball, looks wide. Everything's wide. Because he realizes that instead of trying to play it into Kerry and have them turn, width is where the creativity is in the back 3, right? And that's why I think he's actually quite a valuable player. There are issues with the lack of legs, but I think that I can understand why they've done what they've done. I think Sam Field would have been absolutely perfect because he can actually cover at left wing back as well. And I think that they're quite frustrated that they didn't get that one done, because I think that would have given you that other option to sort of play when you didn't want to play Cody in games against players like Hackney and however you pronounce that guy's name at Ipswich. So look, I think that the window made sense. I think that it was time for Menaborough to go and play football. I think that Apter, of course, is the tricky one. I've already been through my thoughts on that. Tanto, I get it. And I think I said it in the last. I would have had Fevrier in the summer. I thought Fevrier. Look, I'm almost certain that we just got priced out of that move. That they priced him at a price point we didn't want to pay. But that would have been, to me, that would have been a Thierry Small replacement you probably could have used. And I think if we'd gotten that done in the summer, it would have done us a lot more than having Tanto in the squad. So sacrilegious. I know Paul is in here, but that's sort of where I stand with the wind. That'd be interesting. I think it's a 6.5. As I said, I want a central midfielder and I wanted a left-sided player. I still don't like the idea of having to go to Gillespie when Bell gets himself hurt again after 6 games. But again, I think it's what you can do with the Gillespie thing is you can make that defense, you can make that left side, you can stack it. So you can almost play someone, you can play 2 sort of fullbacks out there. So you can play Chambers and you can play Fevrier or Tyrese up front and then have them drop. So you're almost playing one up front and you're playing Gillespie to try and cover the pace so he doesn't have to play the fullback bit of that. But whilst you have Bell and whilst you have Ramsey fit and you have a big dominant Lloyd Jones in the middle, I think that it works, and I think it makes sense. And I'm really surprised I'm coming out of that window how it started thinking that, because I'm like anybody. Whilst I may sit here and try to understand what the club is doing, sometimes I sit there and I go, huh? But the more that I thought about it, the more I go, okay, actually the tactics, I can see what they're doing, and this is why they pay Nathan Jones and they pay Phil Chappell and whatever, and they don't pay me. Mark saying Kerry with the defensive nous becomes the 8 in time for me. It's possible. I'm not sure. I don't know how much defensive nous you can teach a player. I think you're probably almost better leaving him as a tenner. I think he's been very effective, and buying yourself a nice shiny midfielder um, in the summer. So, and I think you're gonna have to probably get players that can cover a Bell and a Burke, right? They're sort of cheap replacements who've done a job, but I wonder you might need to sort of look at players to play in those positions as well. So the summer's going to be very interesting. But something that happened the last minute is other doubt we would have let Croy go. Yeah, I mean, Croy needed to go for his own development. I think it's really important he goes somewhere and plays every week so he's on the ball all the time. Um, yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think for him it's good. For the club, I think there are some questions. One thing to know about Chambers too is that he has an option at Liverpool. But I know Nathan Jones doesn't like loan players. That's the sort of player if he plays well enough. Is he at 22 going to be good enough to play in the Liverpool team? Absolutely not. Um, but that's a player that you probably could sign in the summer as well. If it works out. Seemed very happy in his press conference today. Chambers, to be fair, I thought that was quite nice. The resources that clearly weren't available, I think, was a brilliant window, strengthened massively. I think so too. I mean, let's just say 6.5 for a 7 for January is, that's pretty high marks. As I say, we'll see. I mean, if Bell stays fit, then you can probably up that to an 8. If he can stay fit playing centre back and not have to go out to left wing back. If he goes to left back, that's okay. Don't mind him at left back. He just cannot play left wing back. Because he can't get up. So as long as he's just playing centre back, I don't mind it. He's not going to be playing Chelsea. We're going to be playing intricate balls in behind him. We're going to have to stretch. But that's one in the league game. I think for Amari, you're going to have to tell him to sort of leave it. Don't risk the hamstring for to win one ball. I think it's more important that we have him. Yeah, Carey is best at running at defence. I think you're true, but he is a good carrier. So I understand Mark's points. There are a lot of 8s that are very, very good carriers rather than great passers. I think finding a great passing 8 is going to be really, really expensive. But runners, you could have Burke as well. Yeah, you could do. So you can play, but I think Burke would make more sense as that middle centre back. Again, have to run too much. He can play the right centre back role. I think he's probably athletic enough to do it. I thought it was interesting Gillespie was on the bench. I think that whilst Bell plays, it probably will be Gillespie because I think that he wants the left footer and Bell's the most likely to break down. What's everyone's thoughts on Dixon and Gas being recalled? I know both have been involved for a number of games with Croy and Stevenage, which shows both need a lot of work. I don't think was Gas actually recalled. Did they actually recall him and I haven't seen it? I don't think he was. I think he's just. Was he actually recalled? I don't see anything on it. He's still on loan at Stevenage for this. Yeah, I think he's still on loan. So he's just back to rehab his injury. Yeah, you do have Burke for this season. You do. So I think you've got some centre backs. Yeah, Gassan's still on loan. Dixon doesn't really. I think with Dixon, it's not going to work. If I'm being honest with you. Yeah, Gas is just rehabbing an injury. I think. But yeah, I mean that's a problem in the summer. You have to find someone to take that contract off your hands. I think it's going to be difficult. I think probably for the next 2 seasons you have to loan him out and pay a lot of those wages just to get rid of him. That's been a complete disaster. But yeah, I think with Dixon, it's just not going to work. I don't think. I just don't think he's good enough. If he's starting to get in that Crawley side, I really struggle to see. They're what, 3rd bottom, 4th bottom in League 2. If he can't get into that side, I struggle to see what the future further up is. Zach Mitchell again. It's another tricky one. It's annoying he went to Burnley. It's annoying he had to play in the cup games. I think he actually looked pretty good against Stevenage, but again, that's League 1 opposition. I just don't think he's big enough. Alex Mitchell, I'm almost certainly. I expect he's gonna be Alex Mitchell will be sold to Plymouth. Dixon was a gamble. Expect him to line up for Dartford imminently. I think he's gonna play under 21. They're saying at the moment, but yeah, you get some sort of National League loan. I would have thought just to kind of get him experience. We've got 1 year left on the contract after this. I just struggle to see it. Terry Taylor's contract obviously runs out in the summer, so he'll end up playing for Northampton almost certainly. But I think I'm gonna call that. Yeah, he did. Zach did absolutely ripped apart at Cambridge. He did. To be fair, he's better against Stevenage. Weirdly enough. But again, lots of players were really, really crap against Cambridge, and a lot of players haven't really played since that disaster of a game. So I don't know if that's on one player. Right, I'm going to call that here this evening. If that's all right, guys. And I will talk to you all on Sunday. It's a bit of a quick one. Sorry, it's on a Thursday evening. It's a bit strange. But I know it's Charlton live time. But I will see you all on Sunday to review the QPR game, and we'll look ahead to Stoke as well on the Wednesday night because I can't do anything on the Tuesday. All right, I will talk to you soon. Look after yourselves. All the best. See you tomorrow down the valley if you're there. Come say hello. See you later. Bye.